Welcome to That Guy's a Maniac, the podcast. The following is a disclaimer and an apology. Some of you may have been misled in last week's podcast that the episode number was in fact number 10. However, in actual fact, it was number 11. We extend our humble apologies and can guarantee this will not be the last time that we fuck this shit up. But that's what happens when you let Farley do all the legwork and the heavy lifting. Haha. Anyway, so Farley, what's 11 plus 1?
10-2.
10-2. 12-2. So
10-2.
So this is episode X-2. 10-2.
No, you've got 10-11. Yeah, 10-11 and 10-2.
10-2. Okay, so this is episode 10-2.
Episode 10-2.
Episode 10-2. And we are doing it themed on fighting games.
Games.
Yeah, and who's our sponsor this week, Farls?
This week we're very lucky.
Lucky.
We're very lucky to be sponsored by Ultratech. Ultratech is a lovely little company that makes fighting robots and fighting dinosaurs and fighting human alien hybrids. So don't forget, next time you want some fighting things, go to Ultratech.
Good work. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, glad we don't fuck up the sponsor every single time.
I like how you did the accent and then you just leaned right into it and went with it the entire way.
Yeah, that way it sounded like it was deliberate.
Yeah. We'll go. Good thing we don't hang a lamp on it or anything like that.
I know, I think I got away with it. Nobody thought that was me just saying that weird.
Lucky.
Ultratech.
Anyway, yeah. So,
glad you got your fucking sew in there.
Yeah. Well,
it's now becoming. At least it's shifted. So now we have the entry. Now we have the intro. Oh my god.
The intro. Sorry, were you mocking the way I say words?
We're lucky now. You only say so after the intro.
Oh well, yeah.
So button bashers.
Button bashers. We want to talk about fighting games. Button bashers, yes. Otherwise known as beat 'em ups, button bashers, joystick wagglers, whatever you.
I hate all of those. The British ones are the worst.
Yes.
It's understandable why, video games aren't taken very seriously. Because if you think about, I don't know, music journalism and movie journalism, which are kind of the obvious comparisons for kind of video games, news commentary and journalism is, genre, the endless discussion about genre labels and brackets within brackets. And then when it comes to video games, particularly British parlance, they've got fucking button bashers and button mashers.
I mean, that's the thing. I mean, with video games, the opening market for them, as opposed to the other mediums that you sort of mentioned there, it doesn't necessarily. It's not super accessible. What's the word I'm looking for? It doesn't attract necessarily the same types of people with media and film and things like that. You tend to get a little bit more of the artsy fartsy guys who will deconstruct it and critique rather than critic it. And
then when it comes to games, we talk about fucking Metroidvanias.
Oh no,
button bashers.
Yeah.
So, fighting games. You're a big, to kind of top off the show, you're a much bigger man than me.
Fuck.
Apart from where it counts. No. You're much bigger. Sorry. Lame comedy. You are a much bigger fighting game fan than me. I have dabbled. But you kind of have this in the background. You know, keep your toe in.
Yeah. But just before we delve any deeper, one thing I did want to say, and this is something we should sort of let our humble viewers be aware of, is and preface this entire episode.
Why are our viewers, first of all, they're listeners? Why are they humble?
Well, they'd have to be to listen to us. I don't know.
What is this? This is news to me. What is this special message to our humble listeners?
Because this is secretly the podcast that never was as well.
Oh, that's true. You're getting some behind the curtain.
Yeah. So, because we are obviously massive pros at podcasting, as you can tell, not one single. Yeah, exactly. You know, our entire opening to this podcast has been quite well thought out, well planned, well spoken. So you can see that we're pros, but sometimes even pros have accidents where somebody might not press the record button, where we record 40 minutes of a show that just didn't actually happen. So yeah, with this fighting game one, we sort of tried to record it a couple of weeks ago. It didn't work out. We've kind of talked.
Then we kind of broke up as a band.
Well, your internet fucked up.
Well, but that was my excuse. I was like, podcast over.
Podcast?
So we technically quit podcasting.
Well, I don't think we technically quit.
Yeah.
Oh, no way. So we broke up.
Quit. Yeah, we broke up.
But
so it's taken us a couple of weeks.
Wow.
And due to much fan demand, even though they didn't know we'd broken up because the episodes hadn't gone out.
Yeah, they operate in a different timeline from us.
Yeah. But it's all over the TJM wiki.
Yeah.
So due to overwhelming fan demand, we've come back together to try and reconstruct, but to redo the lost episode. Because if you remember from the audio we first recorded, it's probably some of our best materials.
It was clearly the best material we've done. It was natural. It was flowing. There's no umming or erring.
We didn't have to look up any titles or release dates.
Because I hear that's what the fans really want from us as well, though. Yeah.
We only spoke about games that we'd actually played rather than games that we'd not downloaded.
Yeah.
And obviously that was magic in a teacup to mash up some metaphors. It's magic in a teacup.
Magic in a teacup?
Reconstruct it.
Do you mean lightning in a bottle?
No.
I think you do.
Like a teacup from Storm in a Teacup. And
okay.
Magic.
From magic?
From just the general concept magic.
Magic from... Oh, what was it called? Wackaday. There you go. No.
There's
a blast from the past. A
little widely appreciable reference.
Yeah, exactly. Timmy Mallett's cockatiel magic in a teacup with a storm.
Yeah.
Not at all lightning in a bowl.
Although you won't know this, but we might actually pinch some of our old material as we go through this.
Yeah, or awkwardly reconstruct some of the moments, but we're trying our best not to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
So go on then.
Alright, okay, yeah.
Where do we start?
Well, you were just talking about how I was a bigger man than you and I play real games, like fighting games.
Yeah, every era except for where it counts.
But I quite like fighting games, and I don't know, there's a sort of a raw, visceral appeal to them to me. I've had like some of the best times I've had playing video games, like especially on a couch versus other people, just sort of playing like fighting games, and just the appeal of just like one-on-one fighting combat, and then just sort of getting into the mechanics and learning how a particular character throws out special moves or does fireballs or has a backflip or a grapple or whatever you want to say. I really, really enjoy that sort of side of fighting games. That being said, and as much as I like them, I really, really want to preface all of this with I'm not very good at them. Like, I really, really do enjoy them, but I have seen and I have, sat alongside people who are incredibly good at fighting games, and they use the proper terminology. Like, fighting games has this sub-genre of terminology and all sorts of things for how you're supposed to play a character, or a sort of a generic blueprint of how to approach the fighting games as they are. So, like, we were talking about this before, and like, it's terms like zoning and grapplers and like all of these sorts of words sort of make it an inaccessible thing. But at the same time, what I just want to sort of say is, like, I play fighting games and I enjoy them. I don't really fully care for or understand a lot of that terminology, Yeah,
things like footsies, command grabs, all of that.
Yeah,
stuff.
Twitching.
Again, perhaps part of that comes from the kind of weird situation that we have, particularly with early fighting games, and then situated within the UK, because unlike America and Japan, we didn't really have a big arcade scene. So certainly where we're both concerned, the first hands-on I had with fighting games was because the SNES came out, or IK Plus on the Amiga, and I certainly had no idea that there was an arcade cabinet, or wasn't excited about, this game that we're playing in the arcades finally comes to consoles.
Yeah, like when you would see it on like American movies or whatever, you would see them at these arcades that were just full of arcade cabinets, and people will be playing, like gun games and fighting games and all that sort of stuff. And it was just like, wow, is this something that happens? Because in the UK we just didn't really have that.
Or like your,
Yeah.
your chip shop on the corner would have one arcade machine that it's had for the last 40 years. There was certainly no sense of all that. Well, obviously it depends where you grew up, but I don't think generally across the UK there's certainly no sense of kind of queuing up, put your coin on the cabinet, learning different techniques and different moves. So
no, in fact, like my exposure to sort of arcades, or the first time I saw an arcade machine, was my local swimming baths. A swimming pool had Pang as an arcade cabinet machine, and I mean, when I say that arcade machine must have been there for about a decade at least. Pang was not a very recent game at that point. But yeah,
debatable as to whether it was ever emptied as well.
Yeah, I don't even. It probably hadn't even made a transition at that point to like real money. It's probably still using imperial measurements or something.
Somebody bought it on a whim, and it never actually made its money back. That's why it sat there for 10 years. So, already off the bat, this kind of weird filter of something that a big part of is designed around, being in an arcade against somebody. A lot of, to me, fighting games are really strange, and it continues to this day actually, because for the most part they don't really give you the tools that you need. It's unlike most other kind of game genres, which will give you an easy landing. So you load up the game and kind of introduce the mechanics one by one until by the end of the game you're, like a platform. You're running around with all these kind of skills and abilities. You know what you're doing. Fighting games, for the longest of times, and it's been a criticism of some of them, are just, you load it up and then you just have to learn all the moves. Today you can look up move lists online or hit the pause button.
Yeah, prep pause.
Back in the day, it was just work it out. Okay. So when we got a SNES, it was the Street Fighter II Turbo SNES, and it came with that, and we were just kind of working it out. We had no idea of what Hadouken was. I wonder how helpful the manual was. But I distinctly remember some games, they give you a couple of moves per character, but they absolutely wouldn't tell you every single move.
No.
And no attempt whatsoever to tell you about mechanics, blocking, wall jumping, for the games that have kind of rock, paper, scissors systems. None of that, so you have to work it out. And it kind of persists today.
Yeah, I would say that I know exactly where you're coming from, especially in Street Fighter. Now, I played Street Fighter 2, not Super Street Fighter 2, so I never got to really delve deep in the big four boss characters because they're playable in Super Street Fighter. But I know for a fact that when I played Street Fighter, we would try and discover the moves, and we'd discover the moves like we'd learn how to do Hadouken and Dragon Punch, but it took me the longest time, or it took me a long time way after, to find out that there was hold back moves. So for instance, I think it's what's his face, Blanca, you can hold back and B and then press forward and B and he does this roll across the screen. Or classically Chun-Li, one of my favourite characters, I never knew how to do her spinning bird kick. It was hold down and then press up and kick and you do the spinning bird kick. But yeah,
I remember kind of myths about Dao Sim's moves, right? Because occasionally the CPU would pull off a yoga teleport and how the fuck because there's no way of working out how to do that, let alone reliably kind of pull it off mid fight. So and that's.
But I think that's probably a very good reason as to why they're called button bashers, because you accidentally would pull off one of these moves in the middle of fighting your mate and be like, shit, how did I do that? And you think back to what buttons you were rapidly punching and pressing and combinations you were doing. But I had no idea about any of those hold back moves at all. Not until way later generation of it. I think it was
So talk us through. Let's kind of go through our chronologies, I guess. The histories with fighting games. Briefly.
I think a very, very brief. As obviously there was on the Commodore 64, there was IK Plus and things like that, but I don't remember that specifically well. I think you've got better memories of it on the Amiga than I do.
Yeah, we used to love IK Plus, and then they released it for the PlayStation, and I picked that up as well. And that was kind of cool because the systems were so limited that you didn't have these huge move sets. It's basically high, medium, low, and that's all there is to it. But just used to love the soundtrack, and then I don't know if that introduced them to fighting games. I doubt it. But the kind of bonus games in between. So there's one where bombs would bounce along, and you'd have to do kicks or sweeps to hit them out of the way, and then every now and then a rubber. A man's head would bounce along.
Okay.
And then there's only one stage. There's loads of little details in the back, so it's really dynamic in the background. So that sometimes there'd be a little caterpillar. I seem to remember sometimes Pac-Man would go along, a bird would fly across the background. So and we used to.
This is all news to me.
Wow. That's great.
find an emulated version and actually perhaps we should do a video of it because it's dead simple but and fun.
Yeah.
You go through the dance. So it has a kind of all the core elements. So that was probably the first fighting game we engaged with, and then me and a friend played Street Fighter on either the Amiga or the Commodore, but it was unrecognizable as a Street Fighter.
I remember Street Fighter 2 came out on the Commodore 64, and it came out like way after even the zeitgeist of the SNES version, I think. It was like, what is this even doing on the Commodore 64? And it looked awful.
Yeah, I remember it being essentially like, two blocky exclamation marks. Yeah.
But yeah, like the original Street Fighter, as in just not Street Fighter 2, but Street Fighter, it was. Yeah. I think it had a release on the Commodore 64 as well, and yeah, I think exclamation marks and yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And then the SNES came along.
Well, before we jump on the SNES, I had a lot of experience of Mortal Kombat on the Amiga as well, and
it blows my mind that came out on the Amiga.
I didn't even know it was out on any other. And of course, when I played it on the Amiga, with the Amiga it was always joysticks as well, yeah, it's like it was over a course of like a few discs. I think I mentioned this before, but yeah, it's nuts that you would play it with your mate, and you would, depending on the characters you chose, the game would then have to tell you insert disc 4 or insert disc 6 or whatever. But certain characters you could sort of reuse in a certain fashion. So for instance, if you chose Scorpion, you could then play as Reptile or Sub-Zero without having to put the disc in again. So it was kind of like they already kind of loaded like 3 or 4 characters onto each disc. So if you both chose like a certain character, you could get away with not having to load it over and over and over again. But the biggest pain in the arse for that was if anybody chose Shang Tsung and you put in a code to turn into any one of the other characters, the game would pause, ask you to put in the disc, and then you would have to load in that other character. It's nuts.
Yeah. I mean, considering we talked about this a bit, how lazy we've become as gamers, right? Where nowadays we're like, I don't really know what to play, but I can't be bothered to change the cartridge or change the disc.
No.
Let alone mid-game, mid-fight, mid-round. Swapping discs in and out. And then, well, I think because back in the, we're not doing a big evolutionary history, but back when those fighting games came out, they were kind of much more difficult to pull apart from things like, let's say, wrestling games and side-scrolling kind of beat-em-ups. Right?
Well, yeah, I mean,
presentation was the same.
Let's put a big pin in this right now. We'll come back to our chronology when we come back to the SNES, but right now, I want to go into a little bit more depth about what actually is a fighting game, or at least what games we're going to be talking about as our fighting games, because I've said this before, the tagging on Steam is a bit weird, and again, they're given different names, such as what we were talking about, beat 'em ups, or the side-scrolling beat 'em ups, as you mentioned there as well. Fighting games for me is, it is like your classic Street Fighter-esque, one player versus another player, left side of the screen, right side of the screen, you jump about, you fight, you do moves, you learn the character's moves, sort of thing. I do not think a side-scrolling beat-em-up like Streets of Rage or Golden Axe or whatever falls into the fighting game category. but quite a few people do. And I know there are ones that exist out there that actually include the mechanics of it. And in fact, I think Tekken 6 or 7 includes a side-scrolling beat-em-up section, just to mess around with my definition. But but yeah, no, like
okay, so if we take that as the vanilla case, you know, you're looking at one screen, you probably scroll left or right. Where are the kind of edge cases that for you would sit within your classification? So what about like arena fighters? Right? So think of things like Pokken or some of the Dragon Ball and Naruto games that you love so much.
Again, they sort of move away from, and again, there's going to be some edge cases here as well. They move away from that sort of 2D plane. Now, I know in a lot of games, such as Soul Calibur or Tekken, you have the ability to.
I'm going to say, what about Tekken? What about?
You're given that perspective. It is a button input, and you have to sort of shift around. But ultimately, in order to actually land a blow, you're going to have to be facing each other. There's a sort of a magnetic attraction in fighting games where you're almost always facing each other. If you jump over someone, you don't stay facing the other direction. You automatically turn and you're facing that person. You know, there is that kind of magnetic attraction there which stops you looking in another way. You are fighting them, and that's going. It is a little difficult to say, but I would say and categorize even Soul Blade and Tekken as almost 2D, because it is on a 2D plane that you're fighting, you know. And as much as you can sidestep and dodge,
you can kind of sidestep, particularly with Soul Blade, which I spent a lot of time on, and it's probably my favourite one. So I just never really got to grips with Soul Calibur. When you do step out of that plane, you're very limited in what you can do, right? It's kind of a bit awkward. You know, you don't really have a huge amount of moves that you can use in that space to take advantage of the fact that you might be next to somebody. You know, there's a move that will do some extra damage or have a different animation because you're behind them, but really you're just kind of slightly edging off the plane for a split second, but then everything kind of snaps back to that plane.
Yeah. But
okay.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that it's vague, and I know that there are games out there that definitely deviate from that sort of our vanilla explanation of it, but I would definitely say fall very much into the category of a fighting game.
Let me give you a couple more edge cases.
Okay. Nidhogg. Yeah, I mean, it is a very stripped.
Many screens.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, it is a very stripped down version of a fighting game in so many ways. But ultimately, Nidhogg is just paper, scissors, rock. And as much as you can be paper, scissors, rock to get past that person, that is it. You know? And yeah, I would say it is a fighting game, but it's way pared back. It's sort of been like taken back to the very roots of IK Plus and things like that, but then it's just sort of evolved, gone off on its own tangential evolutionary line and become its own thing. But yeah, I would.
Yeah, I'm sure we could do like a. I'm sure it exists actually, like a spider diagram. Of, evolutionary phylogenetic relationships between fighting games. Wrestling games. Where do we sit with those? Where do you sit with those?
I mean, my exposure, and I apologise for this, Farley, my exposure to wrestling games is only the times that you've loaded up your wrestling games. I don't particularly like wrestling. In fact, I remember WrestleMania on the Commodore 64. There was a friend of mine who had WrestleMania, and he was right into, you know, WrestleMania back when it was Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior.
Yeah. It made a big splash.
Yeah.
Over here in the 90s.
Yep. But
on Sky, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It was on Sky right after The Simpsons. But yeah, it was. I'm not a huge fan of them because I don't know. To be honest, all I really remember about wrestling games, and this is your fault, is like you could create characters and do intros, and all of the characters you created looked like gimps and had an intro song which was "I'm an Ass Man."
Yeah, I mean we're huge wrestling fans in wrestling games, but I guess the reason why I brought them up is because it's one of those other persistent. I mean, it's almost a genre in its own category. This is one of those games where 1-on-1 or sometimes 2-on-2 is kind of at the heart. You know, that's the central premise. Is it's a competitive rather than cooperative game as its kind of central premise. One more, and then we will actually start talking about
the chronology again. Yeah.
Super Smash Brothers.
Yeah. Contentiously. The way I play Super Smash Brothers, because I don't play it like in a competitive environment or anything like that, but
not that many people do. But there we go.
There you go. Exactly. I play it for the storyline, or I'll play it against you, or play it cooperatively with you. But I feel there's too much going on, and I feel that they're, despite having some roots in fighting mechanics in the way that you move your character, I think the putting them in a great big arena with lots of things that can happen, random things dropping from the sky, kind of moves it away from being a fighting game, and it becomes its own thing.
I think it's one of those games where it can be either. Like, so if you turn all the items off, only play in Battlefield Omega stage mode with no items, then that is a pure fighting game. Albeit with you can even put on stamina. Although interestingly, when it is kind of played professionally in inverted commas, it tends to be based on knocking people off the screen. So it can be. Okay.
But sorry, just to quickly go back, because what you sort of said there as well was wrestling games. I never understood the health bars or the systems that they used. Wrestling games, it seems to be like you would do things and grab people and try to pin them, but you could only pin them if certain things happened or if you hit a button at the right time. I think again, that just sort of moves away from the simple beauty of a blooming health bar rather than anything else.
And also introducing, this is why it's famously people don't like Smash Brothers, or certain characters are banned from certain competitive tournaments, is any element of randomness. Right? You introduce a random number element. So, for example, Mr. Game & Watch has a move where he gets that side hammer. If it's a 9, that's an instant smash. So often he's kind of banned. And with wrestling games, there is that mechanic of you essentially wear each other down, and then it increases your chances of winning a grapple or ultimately getting the kind of 1, 2, 3 pin. You can kind of mash out of it. Yeah, so that's another thing that people tend to not like in their fighting games, is random. It has to be about the pure skill and almost like sterile lab conditions, where you can guarantee that if you do this at this frame, this will happen, or that kind of nonsense.
I suppose, But again, that's not necessarily a thing that I like about fighting games either.
You do have that interesting kind of thing of, and then there are a couple of, like a podcast to listen to where people, or in countries where there is an actual fighting game scene, you know, and I wish we had more of it here, to be honest. You know, where things are, where things are televised, or you've got your favourite players, and you know, things go from seasons to seasons, and as new content comes out or new games are released, everyone's moving from game to game. We're kind of the way we're talking about fighting games is this weird kind of almost backward pocket universe where we don't really know them from the arcades, don't really play them competitively, aren't particularly good at them, and let's face it, at our age are only going to get worse, right? Reflexes aren't what they were. Free time isn't what it is. And that's how we're going to be looking at fighting games. Absolutely not the way perhaps supposed to be enjoyed and played and invented.
From a depressing mortal view. Oh god. Okay. Yeah, that's the view. But yeah, so why don't we hit up the SNES? Hark back to those heady days where we did have time and
fighting games
reflexes. Fighting games on the NES, I would say probably don't extend much further than like what we would have said in the Commodore 64. I'm sure there was a WrestleMania on the NES as well. I mean, I could do the research. I could do it right now. I could look it up. It's proven that our readers love to hear us tip-a-tap on the keyboard audibly.
But it wasn't part of our kind of chronologies. Right?
No, it definitely not. I think my exposure to NES games was nothing more than Duck Hunt and Mario. So, yeah.
Duck Hunt, Mario, Dig Dug. No, it wasn't Dig Dug.
Dig Dug was the first fighting game, wasn't it?
It was the Dig 'em Up.
And
then the SNES came along. It's weird because the way I remember it, and things might not have lined up like this, but when the SNES launched here, it was a bundle, and the bundle that we ended up getting, it was bundled with Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo. It's like, I wonder if there was a not super version of Street Fighter.
That's weird.
Street Fighter 1. I wonder if there was a Street Fighter 2, Super Street Fighter 2 not Turbo. So it's
I remember Street Fighter 2, just Street Fighter 2, not Super Street Fighter 2 bundle. And I remember it for a long time, but like, yeah, okay, fair. But yeah, and so then the SNES brought us, was it Clay Fighter, Killer Instinct, which I think I was a much bigger Killer Instinct fan than I ever was a Street Fighter fan. Yeah, I love Killer Instinct, and again, just to hark back to what you were saying about all of the having to discover moves and things like that. I think we both probably had the same Nintendo magazine, which we had all splayed out with every single one of the moves, how to do Orchid's 64-hit ultra combo, and you would sit there and you would tap and you would practice. Yeah,
some like raggedy, because it had been up and down the street, right? Because when there's endless summers where you'd hang out with all the kids in the street, but up and down the street, thumb to bits, and then there'd just be hours of two people having a pad, knocking one person. It's like, don't do anything. I'm just trying to do something. Knocking the other person down to the woozy state, and then trying to pull off an ultra combo and whatnot. And then occasionally the player who was just supposed to be the stooge would fight back. And no, don't fight. Yeah, it was good times. So then every now and then pull off a crazy ultra combo.
Yeah, I mean, like the inputs that you would have to put into to learn those 64 hits. You were pressing more than 64 buttons, and you had to like straight up get all of the inputs for the kicks just right as well. And I remember it was like Fulgore had to, in the middle of one of his combos, press I can't remember, it was like you had to press like block or run in the middle of one of his combos, so they would do the laser eye quickly and you would cancel it, and it's just fucking nuts, man. And the expectations of, I mean, who found that out? Who was the person in the arcades that was like, right, this is the best way to get the optimal 64-hit arcade combo? Like, what the hell, man?
Well, it was, and again, maybe it's done before, but Killer Instinct was different, and I think this is why we got into it much more than Street Fighter, in that there was a kind of a language to the fighting, right? Here are your opening, a whole bunch of moves per character. And it was only because of this magazine that we got any sense of this. No, I think maybe there's a little bit in the manual. But these moves will then open up the possibility of doing a longer combo, and then this is a chain move, which you could then go into to then extend your combo. And that was just kind of mind blowing, because then you could get
massive mechanics, and
then finish it off with an ultra for these huge kind of move combos, and then the fact that Killer Instinct came bundled with its own CD, Killer Cuts, and there's the music in Killer Instinct is phenomenal. And what I absolutely loved in the kind of re-release of the most recent Killer Instinct is that loads of those tracks are kind of tucked away and hidden away, but like remixed, because that's a huge part of the nostalgia for me, Killer Instinct.
Did you not, on our blog, actually get in contact with the guy who did the Killer Cut CD or something?
Yeah, but that was about one of his... I was playing Time Splitters 2, the same guy did the Time Splitters 2 soundtrack. So phenomenal career, Graham. And I left. I think I died on one of the levels, and then just left it either fiddling on my phone or going to the toilet, and then came back, and the soundtrack was making this really creepy noise, like this really creepy human noise. And bearing in mind it's like 2 o'clock in the morning. So yeah, we emailed him about that, and he got back to us. Sadly, I didn't ask him about the Killer Cuts soundtrack, because I actually love them.
I think you told them about your love of it.
Oh yeah, potentially.
Yeah.
I still love it, and I love it. I love that they're all kind of remixed in the latest version.
But touching on Killer Instinct, another thing that I really like, or one thing that I like about fighting games in general, is there tends to be a lot of hidden content, especially on the ones that were on the SNES or the PlayStation and things like that. Like, for instance, like even Killer Instinct, you would get special cheats that would somehow influence the game in some way. Like, you could get like a super speedy version of the game, like because I think the arcade game was much faster, but they slowed it down for the home version, so you could go back and you could do it really fast, and there was things like there was the secret end character, the final boss character, which was Idol. Like, you could play, like, you would choose Cinder, and then as you were loading up you had to put in a big long button input or something like that, and you would get this secret hidden character, and things like that. It was quite cool. I like that, and of course there's other things that you would get in there as well. Like, you would get alternate costumes. You could make Cinder look like Glacius and Glacius look like Cinder, or give them the color palettes and have fun with that. It's that sort of stuff that I liked, especially in the SNES versions. I don't know if Street Fighter had anything similar. Like, I'm sure.
Yeah, I don't remember, and it's something that you've bemoaned recently on the blog, about the fact that a lot of this is now just straight DLC.
Yeah,
right?
Straight up DLC. Yeah. So the fun secrets that people would put behind great big long, key button presses, is now just buy it for $2.79.
Yeah, or in was it Dead or Alive 5?
The latest one.
It has like thousands and thousands of pounds worth of costumes. Should
Absolutely
you want to buy all of them.
And of course, they're really, really PC costumes of like wedding day lingerie.
Christmas slitch.
Yeah.
Whilst you were talking, I was looking up how you play as Idol on the SNES, and I've completely forgotten this. So at the versus screen, you press and hold right. You continue to hold right and press L, R, X, B, Y, and then you hear. Do you remember this? You hear a voice that says Idol.
Yeah, totally do. Mental. But yeah, that was
last
cool.
note on Killer Instinct.
Okay.
So I have 2 copies of Killer Instinct on the Game Boy.
Oh, on the Game Boy?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Never buying them. No idea where they come from.
Wow. Fucking hell.
So should you have a
Mad
fancy,
klepto.
and have a Game Boy, and 2 Game Boys and a cable.
I actually
Can
do.
Oh God! Well, maybe we could play Killer Instinct on the Game Boy. I'm sure the complexities of a whatever 8-button, 6-button, and a D-pad translate really well to a D-pad and 2 buttons.
Yep. And of course, 32 by 32 pixels or something. Fucking hell. But yeah, I suppose we should talk about the latest Killer Instinct. Have you touched it, played it, or?
No, I haven't. I watched lots and lots of videos of it. I really loved the way they, kind of rotated the free character, had numerous seasons, had the original kind of music, brought back some of the old characters. Yeah, and it looked great. And
does Orchid still get her tits out to do a fatality?
Was that a fatality, or was it a secret something else?
No, it's like Killer Instinct had their equivalent of fatalities, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. I can't remember what they're called. Ultimates?
Yeah, let's call them Ultimates.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if she does or not.
Oh, okay.
What about you? Have you played the new one?
Nope, not at all.
Did you play Gold?
Nope. On the N64.
On the N64.
Yeah. No, didn't. That's really weird. I had so much good times with Killer Instinct on the SNES, but I guess it just that was it. That was all I needed for Killer Instinct. Huh. Yeah. I don't even feel compelled to go and play like the PC version, or did it come out in 360 or something? No, it wasn't 360. It was Xbox One, wasn't it?
I think so. Yeah.
So thank you, listeners, for putting up with us not knowing, not researching the games that we were talking about.
I know. 2
Great.
seconds beforehand.
Yeah.
Street Fighter. What else? I've never, like I said, I've never been a Street Fighter, and I think it's because I never really settled on a main, if you like a character that you like, and is
But that's good terminology. That is good fighting game terminology. That is choosing the character that you want to spend and invest your time in. You want to main this character.
And I've never, and to this day, still haven't really gravitated on a Street Fighter main, and I've, not really played many in the series. I don't think.
Okay. I mean, I tend to always because of the way I played it initially. It was we were learning the moves. Let's choose the default man. So I would play as. Ryu. Oh my god. What are we going to land on? We're going to call him Ryu?
We are going to stick to our guns.
Ryu.
As true Brits and call him Ryu.
So, Ryu. Yeah, so I would play a lot as him. So I learned like his moves. They were quite easy. Roll forward, and you get your dragon punch, and then you get the roll backwards for your. Oh god, that's Hadouken, where you spin round. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
I know.
Oh, good. Glad.
Do you know what I mean? Fucking hell. Actually, I know. I've been
fucking
waiting
hell.
for this long for somebody to finally explain Ryu's moves on the SNES.
Okay, fine, whatever, motherfuck. But I tend to always gravitate to
Boring character.
No. Despite learning a lot of what I did with Ryu, I tend to gravitate towards Chun-Li because once we found out about the screen bounce thing, like wall jumping, it was a game changer. You know, if somebody would battle you into the corner whilst you're blocking, and then being able to jump out of it and sort of do that reversal back on them, it was good. But yeah, like I said, I played Chun-Li and enjoyed playing as Chun-Li, but I knew one move. Like in Street Fighter 2, she did not have the fireball, and I didn't know how to, as I explained before, do the spinning bird kick. So basically, I would just do her kicky thing over and over and over again. that was it. But no, I still tend to sort of go back to her as a character. I think Chunners is a good fun character to have, especially once they gave her a fireball as well. No?
What other Street Fighter games did you play?
On the PlayStation, I know that's jumping a few Street Fighter games. I spent a lot of time on Street Fighter EX plus Alpha. 2, I think. And I mean, as much as I only realised this about a few years ago, that was actually a crossover game. Because there's this other whole bunch of people that are in that game that are just sort of crossed over from another fighting game with Street Fighter. I can't remember what the name of the other game is. I'm so glad you put me on the spot about that. Fucking hell.
Yeah, keep talking.
But yeah, so Street Fighter EX plus Alpha, it was, I think it was the first time that they'd sort of moved into a 3D plane. So it was bringing like these ridiculously polygony, blocky Ryu characters together, and they had a really, really mad variety of people who'd actually come from the Street Fighter Alpha series. And Street Fighter Alpha, or Street Fighter 2 Alpha, it wasn't Street Fighter 3, but it was prettier, sort of mangified characters, better looking. It was clearly just as there was the move from the 16-bit machines like the SNES moving up to 32 and 64, and there's just more pixels on the screen, so they've made them look prettier. And so you kind of see Ryu in more of his more of the style that you see him today in a lot of fighting games, rather than just being a bunch of pixels. What was the name of the game?
I'm not finding it.
You're not finding it? Oh,
No.
damn it. Hang on, give it. Yeah, absolutely. SNK.
Was it?
Yeah.
Which one? EX plus Alpha 2?
Yeah. The crossover.
Or is that EX2?
Street Fighter EX2 plus Alpha.
These titles. And then did you play 3?
No.
Okay. Yeah, I kind of lost interest. I think that's when it wasn't really until 3, arguably 4, that it kind of came out of a big dip, right?
Yeah.
It had a kind of big dip.
I mean, it went off in a way, yeah. Yep. And I mean, and that being said, and let's just sort of, I know that we're fast forwarding beyond our chronology at this point, but like Street Fighter 4, I owned that on the 360 when it came out, and I know that that's still, we're on Street Fighter 5 at the moment, but Street Fighter 4, when I loaded it up, I felt sad because I played it and I played through it, and it just became very, very apparent to me very, very quickly that all it was an esports framework rather than a fighting game.
And that's the sad thing about many fighting games. And although it was often lip service, right? So the story mode in Street Fighter was you play through a bunch of characters in order and you get 2 screens with some ridiculous story. Soul Blade was obviously different with the map and running around. There's a bit more there. But yeah, that's with a rare exception. That's kind of really been stripped back. And I think the one that we both were most disappointed in was Marvel vs. Capcom.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
because it had so much potential, and aside from kind of the rolling intros or some of the promotional materials, there's one, I think it's Marvel vs. Capcom 2 or 3, I can't remember, where it's essentially a bunch of, it's like a camera slowly moving around these fixed environments, just showing off all this detail, and it's just, the potential is just phenomenal. So you have Deadpool surfing on Phoenix Wright's objection, the big text.
Yeah.
And it's like, how crazy is that kind of Deadpool's fourth wall breaking comic stuff is in, and then but that being said, I mean, like, so Marvel vs. Capcom 2 was the famously it's just a 2D game, but it was on the PlayStation 2, but it was Marvel vs. Capcom 3 was when they moved to the 3D one. It's the one that came out. But Marvel vs. Capcom 2 was the one which was, I want to take you for a ride. That character selection screen where she would just sing that over and over and over again. Yeah.
Is it PlayStation 2?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought so. And yeah, I mean, as much as it was a shallow game, as in it didn't have that much in the way of secrets, it didn't have that much in the way of all that sort of stuff, it was essentially a fun way to get the Marvel universe into a fighting game. I actually think that the sort of Capcom characters took a sort of backbench, especially the Street Fighter ones. Like, it was fun to have like Jill in there or Mega Man, but the rest of the characters, they were much more fun to actually get in there and play and sort of go through. But again, ultimately, there was one thing you could do, which was play through, fight a bunch of people. There would be no dialogue, there would be no interaction, and you wouldn't even get like a nice bit at the end. I think you just, you killed, I can't even remember what it was. It was like a big fleshy lava beast thing at the end of Marvel vs. Capcom 2. It wasn't even like Galactus or something like that. It was Oh, it probably is well known. I'm just talking out my arse now. But yeah, no, I liked that. But it was really, really cool because it brought a comic bookiness to the Marvel character, the Capcom characters, and it brought the comic bookiness. I know. It brought the comic bookiness into a really cool looking fighting format as well. I have very, very fond memories of playing that. But again, there wasn't anything else to it. There was no story. There was nothing more than just this is us fighting each other. And I'm sure that it was an incredibly competitive game in Japan or whatever, but I don't think it was. I certainly wasn't playing it competitively. I was mostly playing, I think, as Cable, because he had a great big the ability to fire things from far away. Whatever that's called, zoner maybe.
Zoning.
Yeah. I used him a lot, and it is what it is. But Marvel vs. Capcom 3, when it came out, I was super hyped, super excited. The introduction of Dante and Deadpool, like you were saying, and even like all the other slew of characters that they had. And then I played it, and it was just as shallow as Marvel vs. Capcom 2, if not more shallow. Because it was just like, right, play this, choose your characters, you will fight other characters that are from the Marvel and or Capcom universe, and then you will eventually kill Galactus. That is your goal. Do I unlock anything? Do I get anything else? Nope, but there will be some DLC later on. You could have Nova. And you're like, alright, okay, cool.
It just, and obviously it makes, sense for these games which, play out on the stage of medium to big size events, and that's where they have their longevity, and that's where the kind of vocal fans are. But it's just so why would you, if you released a game like that and it just didn't feel very good to play, that had a really good story mode, it's obviously like, why are you spending time in the story mode? For me, it was just and I love watching it, and we're truly blessed in our timeline that crossovers, which used to be really rare, when it used to be possible to play like 6 degrees of Mario, whatever, and for it to be a challenge. Whereas now, of course, crossovers is just everything. Everything is a crossover, and we're just it's absolutely lucky and blessed and somewhat over obsessed with things crossing over. It's just a waste of the potential, just imagine the opportunity. And you kind of saw little bits of it in some of the cutscenes, like Morrigan hanging out with Iron Man, and them kind of having a bit of a thing. Chris face squaring off against the Hulk. That's good because he's used to fighting mutated big things and
big green hunters. Yeah, exactly.
It's just, for me, it's just the squandered potential for what they could really have kind of done and run with, rather than it just being here's a character you like, and then that's I guess that can lead us nicely into the idea of kind of being a basement king. And this is something I really miss about being a bit older and games kind of running away from being couch cart friendly, is where you'd have a small gaggle of friends who have all picked their favourite characters, and you kind of over hours, days and weeks develop like a little mini arms race. So you pick a character because it's your favourite, or you like it, or you'd always have that friend who would choose the cheaty character or the boss character. And then you develop, without necessarily knowing all the moves or the right strategies, or the fact that parrying's really important. Develop this arms race of strategies and counter strategies, and that okay, I can't keep spamming that move because now he's worked out the timing, so I'm going to choose this character or do this. and being, that feeling of being the best within your group of friends at this particular fighting game. With the knowledge now, knowing full well that you are just a basement king. Although we don't really have basements in the UK. We need another term for that.
Wine cellar.
Conservatory kings? I don't know.
Conservatory.
I'm just thinking where would your
sitting room
parents let you set up with you and your mates? Some out of the way. Shed kings, maybe.
Or indeed just in the sitting room. Are you lot fucking done with the TV yet?
Yeah. Or yeah. Well, the internet's really slow. Can you stop playing your games on the TV? Which of course made no sense.
No. Yeah.
Yeah. So we had that situation with Soul Blade, definitely.
Yeah, I had the same situation with Soul Blade. Me and a couple of people in my year at school were into it, and it was a case of like, I went away. There was 2 characters I made at that point. It was Lee Long and Cervantes.
Check you, Billy Big Balls.
What?
Maining 2 characters, eh?
Yeah.
Did you go on the Scottish Pro Circuit that year?
Yeah, I won it. Got gold.
Oh wow.
But yeah, I wasn't really paying attention. I was mostly sort of still, doing all of the time trials and Mario Kart on the SNES. I was just sort of doing it as a thing, side thing, yeah. But it was easy. Fucking no, it was because Lee Long was very good character, but Cervantes was like the one that you wanted.
It's the cheaty boss character.
He was, but he wasn't. I am that friend.
Good friends. Yeah. He was well known to be the cheaty boss character.
Well, no, Soul Edge was the or Inferno was
some pro level Soul Blades player. And he's just been choosing the cheaty boss.
Yeah, Lee Long. But Lee Long's not in this series anymore.
Yeah, it's a shame when characters just kind of drop off.
Yeah.
And then so I guess we're in PlayStation days, and that's where to me, it kind of exploded, right? We've got Bloody Raw, we've got Battle Arena,
Rival Schools,
Rival Schools. Oh, that's fantastic.
The 3D, basically the 3D fighters, but we're still 2D, came into being.
Darkstalkers. Yeah. I just remember all these.
Darkstalkers was SNES.
There wasn't one on the PlayStation?
Yeah, there was. Darkstalkers 3 was on the PlayStation, but
whatever happened to that series?
Well, there has been talk for many years that they were going to revive Darkstalkers in the same way as they did with what's it called, Street Fighter 5, using the same engine. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed Darkstalkers as a game, and in fact, harking back to what are you aiming about?
I don't think it was on the SNES, dude.
Really?
The first game is The Night Warriors, 1994. Oh. Yeah.
Oh. So it was arcade then PlayStation. Okay, sorry. My bad.
Yeah, fucking hell. And unless you had a bootleg.
Yeah. My uncle works on Nintendo. He gave me the original Darkstalkers one.
Yeah, before because originally they were making it on yeah, sad. They've been in more games as cameos
than they
have their own series.
And they're such great characters, and they're so much fun to play. Like, I mean, just like Sasquatch and like a big Frankenstein guy, and then you've got the zombie Sid Vicious style character, and it's really cool. But again, it never really expanded, like beyond like you would get to the end of it and it would tell you a little story in text. Now that Morrigan had won X, she's gonna go back to her castle and be Morrigan. I don't know. Fucking. Yeah.
She's Scottish, right?
I think she's Irish.
Oh, racist. What a racist. You're all the same, right, you Celts?
Oh, fuck off.
Yeah, Irish. Oh no, that's the actual Morrigan.
I think she's. If it's any racism here, it's probably Japan. Probably mixing Scotland and Ireland together.
Oh yeah, just smashing it together.
Yeah.
Why do I think she's Scotland? I thought there's a level of Scottish.
Well, Morrigan, the name Morrigan is.
Listen, this is information just from my head, right?
Okay, cool, fine, whatever.
Morrigan is a succubus, as we know, an adopted daughter of the Demon King Belial, of the Ainsland House.
Yeah, and prophesized her birth in Scotland. Okay, yeah, but I think she was given an Irish accent in Marvel versus Capcom Infinite. I will look into that. I think she was made Irish then, or retconned to be Irish.
Oh, that'll be a scandal because this podcast is pro non-caricature Scottish characters in games.
Oh yeah, we are.
Yeah, and we're gonna shout out to every time we find one, which is rare.
Every time we find a Scottish character in a video game, I can think of.
It isn't a caricature, so none of that dwarf shit.
What about GTA Vice City? You got the rock band. It's led up by the guy who played Tommy in Trainspotting.
Oh yeah, the fake Spinal Tap.
Yeah.
Love Juice?
Yeah, I'm gonna say Love Juice.
Something like that. They're great. Shout out to Love Juice. Oh my god.
What do you keep doing?
So excited. It's gonna get excited.
It is Love Juice. It is indeed Love Juice. Well done.
What a fantastic piece of trivia to occupy in my brain. Absolutely nothing more important that needed to be in there than that.
Given that Rockstar is in Scotland or in Edinburgh, there is a lot of nods to Scotland in there as well. Like I think San Andreas, instead of the San Francisco Bridge, they actually put the Forth Road Bridge in there, which is the bridge going over the Forth in Scotland.
Yeah, who'd have known?
Yeah, everyone.
Forever.
Yeah. But yeah, I can't think of any other Scottish characters in games that aren't portrayed as like wearing a kilt or having bagpipes.
Or being drunk.
Oh god. Or beating up their wife, or dying of heroin, or being miserable, yeah.
Yeah.
Ah. So
Morrigan, if she is Scottish, is none of that.
Okay, yeah. No, I know. And she's actually quite sexy, which is
yeah, which is not very Scottish, right? I mean, no, being sexy is definitely Scottish, or can be, but you're not gonna, skirt about on the high street dressed like that. Although that's not true. I've been to Scotland. That is exactly.
Yeah. I was about to fucking say.
It's that special physiology that Scottish men and women.
I love the fact that you even used the right terminology. Stoat a bit. Stoating a bit in the high street, man.
I'd love for Morrigan to be like proper thick Glaswegian accent.
I'm a fucking succubus, by the way.
Please make that series come true.
Yeah.
Swapping our bloody bottles of ginger down at the newsagent.
What a weird reference.
Typically Scottish things. No one bats an eyelid at the fact that she's got wings and bloody head wings.
Right, okay. I think we've talked really, really in depth about the mechanics of Darkstalkers there.
That's why you should. That's why it's a series that needs bringing back.
Yeah.
Mechanics, man. Fantastic. Tell me about this is a series I've not engaged with very much at all. Guilty Gear.
Guilty Gear. I have only sort of played about with them in sort of touched here and there, and I played the old versions, and there's a lot of like older versions of these games which don't run beautifully, especially in the PC, which I think is probably one of the only places they exist nowadays. But King of Fighters and Guilty Gear, they all sort of were one spawned from the other. So you have these King of Fighter characters and Guilty Gear characters, and they're nuts. They're super Japanese, crazy characters. Every anime trope that you could think of is in there. You know, the crazy psychotic woman down to like a maid who hits you with cats, or like a big jock guy versus a skinny guy that has a giant robot behind him. You know, all of these typical Japanese anime tropes, and the characters are so well rounded that you almost create the backstory that's correct in your head just by their intro animations. You know, and they're always quite explosive and things like that. I had a couple of issues, and I can't remember which specific one of the many millions of Guilty Gears or King of Fighters. I think it was Guilty Gear, in fact. In that, and this actually goes against something that I was saying against the vanilla holotype for what a fighting game is.
Fighting game.
Yeah. There's a weird mechanic in, I think it's Guilty Gear, where you jump, and if you jump over someone, you actually have to press a button to turn around and face them. So this is the really that was a very weird mechanic for me, which is you have to choose which way you're facing. Now I'm sure that opens up like back attacks and putting in loads of other kind of weird combat things, but the idea that you actually had to physically turn left or make yourself look right or look left, that blew my mind as to why the hell would you want to do that. And I tried sticking with it. I think I played through as one character and I was just like, this is impossible, I'm done. So my experience of the Guilty Gear King of Fighters series was that.
Oh, that's a shame, because I thought you would have Guilty Gear would have been right over the street.
Definitely, like the characters are really, really cool. Yeah. King of Fighters is a lot newer, and I think I don't remember the exact history. I think King of Fighters split from Guilty Gear.
Really? That seems surprising to me, because one is a fairly, generic fighting game with colourful characters, and then one is a mental kind of hellscape game, right?
Yeah, but there's still all sorts of characters in there.
Well, you tapping away. Let's hear it.
Yeah, definitely. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's one or the other, and I think they did, or there is a link between the two. Like the guy who created Guilty Gear left the series to make King of Fighters or something along those lines. I can't remember off the top of my head.
Okay.
Yeah. But I think there is definitely a link between the two, and I think they keep seeing each other as well. There's crossovers.
Yeah, it's definitely a crossover game.
Same universe.
So all of this is happening within. Well, we're getting it on our crazy little island. Really during the PlayStation era. Well, this is when they first kind of come over here. It's just this crazy explosion of all these different fighters, and then in my mind anyway, they kind of almost disappeared completely, and for a while it just felt like maybe it's around the PlayStation 2 era. It's kind of like Dead or Alive was the only fighting game that was coming out.
Well, we've also skipped one big major series as well that started its roots on the PlayStation, and that's Tekken.
Oh yeah, you're a huge Tekken fan, right?
Well, not to say I'm barely big balls, you know. No, no. I.
You were the first.
Yeah,
Celtic.
first to
into Celtic Championship.
To get all gold on on 300cc.
Yeah. With Roger.
But yeah, I actually didn't play the original Tekken. I played Tekken 2. I don't know why.
You maverick.
But again, one of the things that I really, really loved about Tekken 2, and it's just back to what we were saying about all of the extras and things like that you would get in like the SNES games and stuff like that. All of these millions of things that you would get that are just would now be DLC. In Tekken 2, you started off with less than half of the character roster, and then you play through as each one of those characters, and then you would unlock their nemesis, as it were, who usually had a similar moveset with some slight differences and looked different. And then after that, you would still unlock even more. You would unlock Angel and Devil versions. You would unlock Alex and Roger, the lizard and kangaroo, and there was loads of other crazy things in there. And like, even just like when you loaded Tekken 2, you got to play Galaga for some reason. You know, you got to.
Yeah, that was great because was it Ridge Racer as well, where you could play a little game on the left?
Yeah. Oh, maybe I'm mixing the two up. Ah, well done, Richie.
That's the kind of quality game
journal. Yeah.
Some
But-
PlayStation game had
Yeah.
some shitty thing.
There's Namco, definitely. Yeah. Have
Get
fun.
on yourself.
Motherfuck. But yeah, no. But yeah, the depth and the beauty of like having so much of this available to you just from one game, as opposed to like a million different versions or DLC or whatever. You just got given so much with Tekken 2 the game that you, by the time you'd unlocked everything, you'd actually played it so much that you'd learned everything at the same time. Well, not everything, but you would learn so much about it. I was so into Tekken 2 because I'd invested that amount of time unlocking everything. I was like, this is excellent, I want to continue playing it. And I remember, and this this harks back to something that you would more likely to do, because you are the sort of person who collects every single Nintendo magazine, every single poster that comes with a game or poster that comes with a Nintendo magazine, and you file it away and you keep it, and it's all precious and it's neat. But what I did was, and this was a PlayStation magazine, I bought 2 copies of it, and I took...
Which is, you know, that's a big move.
It's a big investment for
Yeah.
Billy Big Balls.
For a 10-year-old Richie.
And I cut out all of the pages so that I could have like laminated pockets to flick through, so that I could get to each one of the characters' movesets because you didn't have that pause, which allowed you to have all of the, the moves available to you. You literally had to learn all these things, and like I remember, like moves like Armor King had one where you did a full circle forward and then press back, and you would do a grapple that would make them spin around, and like I think you could do mid inputs as well. So like if you did a grapple and then pressed a button, you would then move into a different kind of grapple, and I mean it was great. I remember it.
It's adorable. I love the thought of like a young Richie. You're cutting out the magazines. Your tongue is poking out the side of your mouth because you're concentrating so hard, making this little Tekken 2 book.
Yeah, essentially.
Do you still have it?
I have a cupboard at home which has all of my old toys and books and things like that. I'm gonna say it's probably, if it still exists, it's in there. There is a chance it exists.
That'd be great.
It's right next to my special version of Mario All-Stars.
It's German copy of Mario All-Stars.
It's not German.
Shigeru Miyamoto. And it had Sonic playable in all the Mario games.
Yeah. Because my uncle used to work for blah blah blah. Yeah, fuck it.
What would you say? And then I guess there's Mortal Kombat, which you talked about in other podcasts, which you're a big fan of.
Yeah, I really enjoyed Mortal Kombat.
It fits your edgelord aesthetic, I think.
Fucking hell, man. My favourite Mortal Kombat had to be Mortal Kombat 3 or Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 on the SNES. Now, I played Mortal Kombat 1 and 2 on the Amiga, and like I told you, it had its flaws. Yeah, I still fucking played it, and got through those stages. Each time you wanted to do a blooming test your might or whatever it was, you had to put in the disc just to change characters. But on the SNES, Mortal Kombat 3, and I spent a long time on that game. And I remember like there was lots of secrets, lots of hidden things. If you put in a certain code, you could play as Shao Kahn, big cheaty boss character. And like it was fun because admittedly they took out a few of the characters and they added some new ones in. And
really, who isn't in 3? Who's in 1 and 2?
God. Right, so I think you don't have Reptile until. What? Is that not true?
Well, no, just Reptile. If I were to main anyone in Mortal Kombat, it would be Reptile.
I don't think you. In fact, here it is. You don't have any of the ninjas except Sub-Zero, and it's Sub-Zero's younger brother in Mortal Kombat 3. Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 brought the ninjas back in, and it brought Rain and Ermac and stuff like that. But yeah, Mortal Kombat 3, I think it only had like 18 characters or something like that.
That's quite a lot back in the day, no?
Yeah, I mean, it was, but like they took out all of the ninjas, and they gave you Sindel and Striker, people like that, like that didn't really make it much beyond there. And of course, it introduced the robots as well. And you always had the middle box, which had a random character in the middle. Every so often, you would see Cyber Smoke appear. So you had Sector and Cyrax. Then you had this blue other robot who was Smoke, basically. Yeah, that's it was obviously sort of like this hidden character in the middle, and you had to do things to unlock. Well, you didn't unlock him. You could only play as him with key input or after you'd done certain things. And I remember like Mortal Kombat 3 was so full of cheats as well. It had like different levels of cheats. Like you could put an input in at the start and you would get the small cheat menu, and then you would get the ultra cheat menu, and then you would get the Tobias cheat menu, or the crazy cheat menu and stuff like that, where they would give you so many different options on how to play the game and what you could do in it and all that sort of stuff. It was really, really fleshed out in the way of secrets. But yeah, it wasn't until like Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 I think you even got Scorpion, which is fucking nuts.
Yeah, because that's obviously one of the characters that you associate with the Mortal Kombat series.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's a funny one. Mind you, the same. Obviously, it's put on under a spotlight with the Smash Brothers series, but you know the kind of and you don't really get this with other kinds of games as well. But you know what the cast is from game to game, and the fact that you know characters would be dropped or characters would be added, or there'd be secret characters or kind of mirror characters. Whereas today, for the most part, although Mortal Kombat kind of throughout has been quite liberal with the no, we're just not having this character.
Yeah, they have their own storylines in so many of their games that they're just kind of like, yeah, you just don't have them now, but there will be an ultimate version, or as what they did with Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3, they then had Mortal Kombat Trilogy. I don't know if you remember that on the PlayStation, where they brought back all of the characters from Mortal Kombat 1, 2 and 3, but in the Mortal Kombat 3 engine, and it had everyone, including all of the boss characters. Like you could play as like the centaur guy, Motaro, and like you could just play as all the ninjas, Rain and Ermac, and so it was kind of, it was what everybody secretly wanted, but it was actually a terrible game. Oh, Raiden! Raiden wasn't in Mortal Kombat 3. Again, a very iconic character.
Is he the Lightning Man?
Yeah, he's the Lightning Man with the...
I can't stand Lightning Man.
He's the star of the later versions.
It's just annoying, though.
Yeah.
Also, a little bit of that disdain comes from the fact that he shares the name as Raiden from Metal Gear 2, Solid 2.
Or the Japanese name for the Thunder God. Or is it Raijin? I don't know.
Yeah,
anyway.
Don't know what you're talking about there.
Yeah, okay, cool. Too otaku for you.
Too weeb.
Too weeb.
Jeez, Japanese mythology podcast.
But yeah, like with Mortal Kombat, you had all of those characters, but Mortal Kombat Trilogy, they brought everyone together and they brought it out on the PlayStation, and it was generally not very well received. It had a lot of issues, specifically because it had disc loading times again. So if you remember, PlayStation running off a CD, wasn't a very well received game. But beyond Mortal Kombat Trilogy, I didn't really play that much Mortal Kombat until the more recent games. There was, I think it was Mortal Kombat versus DC was the next one that I sort of jumped into, which was actually a really, really great game. I don't know if you ever played it.
No, I haven't. But I love that it's the like the Mega Bloks to Lego, right? Marvel vs. Capcom is polished and shiny, and all the characters you know and love, and then kind of Mortal Kombat versus DC is the kind of dirty, less quality of the blocks, a little bit more kind of bloody and slutty and.
Yeah, I mean, they play on the whole merging of universes and stuff like that, so it actually does become like DC characters versus Mortal Kombat characters, and there's some weird sort of like the good guys and the bad guys from the DC universe all have to team up against the Mortal Kombat good guys and bad guys, and then suddenly it becomes the good guys versus the bad guys, and it's all that sort of stuff. But it was a fun story, and of course that gave way to the Injustice series, which but I thought it was good, and I enjoyed the storyline. The Joker in it is brilliant. Such a good character. But yeah, I think my love of Mortal Kombat mainly came from like the SNES versions, and to a little extent the older versions of fucking and the Amiga. Say your words, Richie. And they were good fun. And that they, despite all the loading times, you just spent a lot of your time learning the fatalities and friendships and babalities. Just, it was good fun, like learning that sort of stuff. And I don't know if that constitutes a game, but we're not going to get into that sort of level of existential viewing of what a game is.
Yeah, just that extra, all that gubbins, that extra stuff. It gave it a bit of longevity beyond if you didn't necessarily have somebody to play against all the time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, we briefly kind of stopped on Injustice there, and I guess it's Injustice is a fun game, and I suppose new Mortal Kombat is its own special beast as well. I've talked to you and our listeners about Mortal Kombat 11 and Aftermath, and Injustice I actually quite enjoy as well, but mainly for the plot. Injustice.
Yeah, that's one of the ones that kind of counterpoints what we were saying earlier about this trend away from kind of the story content or single player content.
Yeah, and it does, but what gets me about Injustice is it has a great storyline. It's very, very involving, but anywhere else you look in that game, you are sort of exposed to 5 or 6 different currencies. You have a random chance a day to unlock boxes to get equipment for your characters, and the equipment seems to modify moves in some fashion. I was just like, I don't want that level. I know I've been bitching about there isn't enough single player stuff in a single player for fighting games, but this was just overwhelming, just too much, man. But yeah, I mean, like there is that in Mortal Kombat as well. They have that you look in any direction and there is these new things that they add in, and it is confusing at first, and I'm sure that once you deep dive into it, it's worth it for an extra single player experience. But nah, I don't think I've got the time or patience for that.
Yeah, the Mortal Kombat series has been kind in that respect.
Yeah, but Mortal Kombat, the recent ones have actually had a lot of fun. They've had some good cameos in them. Like they've had Jason and Leatherface and Alien and Freddy and all that sort of stuff. And of course the new one has Robocop and Terminator and possibly Ash from Evil Dead turning up.
I think you've mentioned that maybe once every 2 episodes.
Once every 2 episodes, yeah.
I really hope that Ash does come to Mortal Kombat, because we're so chuffed. We'll have to do a whole episode on Evil Dead games, of which there are many, not many of which are great. to celebrate Ash's triumphant entrance.
Absolutely.
Let's talk Dead or Alive, because that's actually one of the fighting games where we have played together.
Yeah. So Dead or Alive. That was famously the first game to include a slider for breast jiggliness.
Yeah, and that and what's it called? The extreme volleyball.
Yep.
Which is like dating, pervy dating sim. Overshadows the fact that it's a good fighting game, and to me, that's what annoys me so much. Had a really good kind of like parry system. Again, interesting storyline that kind of interweaves with its own spin-off games. And beautiful looking games. And it's one of the series that I've been really interested in. And like I say, certainly to my mind, this is probably not true. For a while, it was kind of the only way that fighting games seemed to persist. Street Fighter was in a black hole for a bit. Soul Calibur felt like that had a break. Tekken,
Mortal Kombat, yeah.
Yeah, they all kind of ran themselves into the ground for one reason or another, or I don't know, maybe people thought there wasn't enough space for them, or everything was moving towards playable online and just netcode or whatever wasn't up to it. And so kind of Dead or Alive it seemed to just keep powering through.
Well, the wonder of Dead or Alive and what makes it different from other fighting games was the introduction of the parry button. Yep. And it's not something that you see in many other games aside from Dead or Alive, and that is just straight up use this button, and if you use it at the right time, you are going to counter the person's move. And you're like, alright, okay, cool. And that changed the way a fighting game sort of played. And in fact, it was more complex as well. It's like even when you done a parry, depending on the types of parry, you could put in other inputs that would then extend those moves into sort of grapples and twists. It was sort of like, that's why you have two wrestling characters in it. You've got Boss and Tina, because their moves, they end up just being American wrestling moves where they just sort of chain, throw you, and then grapple, and then twist you, and then break you, and then let you go. So it was a really, really cool game in that fashion. I liked that a lot. The characters, though, I mean, I found the characters to be a little bit shallow, and I can probably name quite a few of them, but are they that special or different? Like, Dead or Alive went off on its weird tangent as well. It had like clones, and everybody was a clone of someone else. So it's like
there's like 3 ways to run your already crap narrative into the ground. You either go like the clone direction, dimension direction, or time travel as a way to just like, how do we escalate this this simple story about this person versus this person and they don't like each other, or it's a revenge story or whatever. It's like, okay, we've done that, what do we do now? And it's always just these
aliens. Yeah.
So oh god, I forgot about all the clone bullshit in that. And then I guess, well, what fighting games aside from Mortal Kombat, what recent fighting games have you put any time into?
What recent ones? I mean, obviously, I spent a lot of time on Smash Brothers, but I spent a lot of time just doing the single player stuff, playing that storyline, playing as Peach, who I was maining at the time, was great fun and a great way to play that game. But beyond that, I found myself not really wanting to do much. I know that you're really into the spirits on what was it called, Smash Brothers, and making sure you collect all of them. But I just
Smash Ultimate. No, I really we talked about this because we seem to be at odds with the vocal fans when Smash Ultimate came out because the first few games didn't really have much of a storyline at all, beyond that FMV sequence of these toy box characters coming to life. Then there was the Subspace Emissary. Is that right? That sounds weird now.
Yeah.
In is it Brawl? God, I forget now. Yeah, Brawl, which is phenomenal. To actually see these short, not huge, but cutscenes of all the different characters interacting with each other. That was great. And then that side of stuff was completely dropped from the 3DS Wii U one, which was a big shame. And then we were quite excited to see what the single player stuff would, what the story, if you like, stuff would be like.
Yeah.
Smash Ultimate. And a lot of people absolutely hated the spirits and the World of Light and thought it was a massive waste of time. Whereas I love the idea of it being this kind of huge love letter to almost all of video game kind now. Now that everyone kind of wants to be on board with them.
The Smash Brothers, yeah, exactly.
And
there's so many nods as well. It was true. It's just a love letter to them. It's fantastic how well it was done.
Like, okay, how can we reimagine this character from a fairly obscure NES game? How would we, encapsulate their spirit or their theme just using the items, stages, and characters that we have within Smash Bros. And it continues. We've got more characters. Every now and then, they'll release a bunch of spirits related to upcoming games. We've had some Animal Crossing spirits recently.
Resident Evil ones.
Yeah, the Resident Evil ones are in there. Warframe, almost making the 6 Degrees of Mario game completely pointless because
yeah,
it's this person smash Mario, this person smash Mario. So yeah, I really like that because as much fun as playing Smash against the CPU, if you don't have anywhere else around to play, is spirits kind of mix up a little bit, a bit of a daily login thing. We keep adding more of them, and it's just interesting to see. Okay, how have they reimagined this character? And in some cases, like, okay, I've just fought this character, and it was weird. It's them, and they had an accompanying giant cat, and the floor was poison. What's their story?
And then you go away in Wikipedia, and you're like, oh, that's really cool. It was a nod to X.
Yeah. The World of Light itself, it's just way too big. So huge, and goes on and on, but there's not much to it. There's those 3, 4, 5 mini cutscenes, and again, it's just one of those wasted opportunities. And would have loved to have seen something a little bit more along the Subspace Emissary lines. But apparently a lot of other people absolutely hated the idea of spirits, haven't really engaged with it, don't really see the point.
They're wrong.
Yeah, I think so. And so that's Smash Brothers is probably the only. I was trying to think of. I liked Pokken Tournament a lot, and that's one game that I've sort of been following because it still runs in the kind of Pokemon annual events. But annoyingly, I don't know why, maybe because it's an old game, I don't know, maybe because they want to push people to look at newer games. It's still, so you'll have the Pokemon card game, as in the physical card game.
Yeah.
And then the video game, and then Pokken Tournament. Often they won't stream Pokken Tournament at all, so you just have to. It's like a side event. That's a shame.
Oh, okay.
And then that's probably one of the few fighting games that I've followed at the professional, in inverted commas, the professional scene. And again, that's kind of like the idea of the Conservatory Kings, but on Astro.
I love that you're sticking with Conservatory Kings.
Yeah. And so recently, this year, again when they were readily streaming them, there's characters which people had written off. As no one can really do anything with this character. People have unlocked, this kind of new tech, and now all of a sudden they're top tier. So I really like that. I really like kind of following characters' kind of trajectories as players work out new combos. And for a game like Pokken, that's 5-6 years since the original one on the Wii U. People are still kind of pulling out new tech, which is great. Absolutely great. Yeah. So those are the two that I've still played regularly. And then before that, look at the game library. Maybe it was Tatsunoko versus Capcom was the last fighting game I bought before that.
Yeah, I mean that was a solid fighting game. I didn't touch it at all, but I heard great things about it, and like the character designs for the Street Fighter lot was really, really well done.
Yeah, and I'm a huge Dead Rising fan as well, so I was happy to play with my friends, even though I had no familiarity with the Tatsunoko characters whatsoever.
Yeah, no. I mean that's the thing, is like it was surprising to see that I even got a European release or Western release, because it's all very obscure Japanese characters. But that is actually quite a good segue into. There is a lot of very, very solid sort of 2D anime Japanese games that still exist out there as well. Now, I've just opened up my Steam library. I have a load of these Japanese fighting games, and purely because I think they look quite cool. But there's just so many of them, and they're usually like done by System Tech or whatever their name is. Arc Systems, yeah, and they're just basically sort of trying to recreate anime fights, and I think the raw 1v1 vanilla system that I was talking about actually lends really well to that. So like if you can get really, really good with a character and you are Twitch sensitive and are able to sort of pull off these moves, once you're able to do that and then get a character in the corner and start pulling off some ridiculous fucking move where giant robots come in and target and blow people up, and then some scantily clad female robot slashes down their spine from behind, or some sort of crazy Japanese nonsense like happens, it lends itself really, really well in those kind of games. Specifically, like even when the Street Fighter games, they sort of moved to this as well. In fact, I think they might have been the sort of first ones to do it. When a game or a fighting game stops because you've landed a move, do you know what I mean? So, like in Street Fighter 2, you didn't have any of it. You fought, it happened. But if you landed a specific special move, or if you've pulled off an extra move, or you've built up your combo meter and you're able to do this special move, the screen freezes, nobody can press any other buttons, you just have to watch a big crazy attack happen. And I think even Marvel vs. Capcom 2 had that with the assists. You would always choose 3 characters, and if you could get off a special move at just the right time and then put in the input, you could actually get all 3 characters on the screen at the same time doing fucking nuts. So you could have Ryu doing some big mega crazy nuts Hadouken, whilst Spider-Man's flinging webs and the Hulk is charging in behind him, or whatever, you know, like those kind of things would happen, and it just gets out of control nuts, and I think that lends itself very well to the sort of Japanese anime style. But like some of the names of these games are out of control. So like I've got one here called Melty Blood Actress Again Current Code.
Yeah, it is like the kind of anime brothers and sisters. It does seem that you just throw a bunch of random English nouns into a hat.
Yeah.
And then pull them out.
Or another one here, Under Night In Birth Xe : late. And like I briefly had a look into it, and they actually mean things. So like if we go back to the example of the Street Fighter crossover game, which may not be a crossover game, the one tiny thing that I wrote was actually it's Street Fighter Alpha 2, but it includes the EX layer. Like, what the fuck is the EX layer? Is that like extra move, extra special move, extra characters? Does it mean extra? And like, what the fuck? But it's just like, it seems to be developer speak has crept into the names of a lot of these fighting games, especially the mad Japanese ones. And I'm sure it's just kind of like when you look at Under Night In Birth Xe Late, so I feel like that is like the latest exe file, and that's just like, as in like a PC exe file, and I think that's why it's called that. But like I've played a few of these ones, and like you'll just choose a character, and it's odd that a few of these Japanese games, sometimes the whole cast is just nothing but female characters, and you're like, oh, Japanese. You know, fucking nuts. Alright, okay. And of course, they aren't actually female characters. They are anthropomorphizations of civil wars that happened throughout history. Or something.
Just say that word again.
Anthropomorphizations of civil wars throughout Japanese history, or something stupid like that. But that you know, that is a typical thing that you would get. Yeah, it's I mean, like the other thing that I've found with a lot of these Japanese Arxis games or whatever, or they might not even be Arxis, they're probably like basement dweller games, and is it they don't always work. Excuse me. They tend to be quite flaky. So I don't know if it's just like people who are building these fighting games, there is like a standard way to make fighting games, and people are doing the art and animations and trying to build on top of it. But I see that they crash an awful lot, you know, and like it's not something you see with Mortal Kombat or the bigger titles like Soul Calibur and things like that. I find that it's these 2D fighters which look simple just tend to crash a lot on my PC. Maybe my PC shit, but
it wouldn't be unprecedented.
It would be unprecedented, but I always find that they're just very, very flaky. Flaky games that seem to have a cult following, and when I say cult, it probably means that they are flaky, but people have found out that if you launch it as an administrator, it'll stay up for a certain amount of time, or you have to have X installed as well. You know, it's just like, what is the point of this? But there definitely is a cult, and you go back to your Conservatory Kings. Online, there are people who say, oh, this is the best one, and they go into all of the details, and there's like discords that are set up just for how to, you know, play this person perfectly as a zoner or as a grappler, or use this person, but use this person to couple up with them, that sort of stuff. Mad nuts sort of stuff. And it's weird, like, I will still always put them on my wish list, and I will still like think, oh, that's cool. I really like fighting games. I want to learn all about these fighting games. I want to main this character, but in all actuality, I'm not going to spend the weeks, months, years that is designed to be put into these games to play against no one. Nobody.
Yeah. That's the sadness at the heart of fighting games, I think. Fighting games without a player too, or without a community where you can kind of, just lose against or bounce ideas off, or practice. And,
rivalry, yeah.
I mean, unfortunately, with many fighting games, and particularly the ones, as you've mentioned, many of, which don't have any kind of much in the way of offline single player or story content, is that age very well. Once the servers are dropped, all you've got is a kind of like a hollow dojo where all you can do is kind of play against some CPUs.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is sad.
It is sad.
I think, because then you kind of lost that feedback. Or there's no, it's just loading up to give your favourite character a kind of a spin. Although that's it. Whereas, I can still happily go back to Soul Blade and play through. What is that mode called? I've been trying to think of it all podcast.
What mode? What do you mean?
It's the mode where you run, which is essentially the story mode. You're on a map and you run from encounter to encounter.
Oh, the Edge of Soul, I think it is. Wait a minute, no, Edge of Soul is the name of the song. Oh, wait a minute, Edge Master mode.
Edge Master? Really, is it called Edge Master?
Yeah, it fucking is. No way.
Yeah, whereas I can still happily fire up Edge Master mode and smash through that.
Oh no, Edge Master mode is not that. Edge Master mode was where you would get weird conditions as you fought against different fighters. So you get like ring outs are not possible.
Yeah, because you'd unlock weapons in the story mode as well.
Yeah, you would.
Yeah.
Oh well. Yeah, there's no point in us sitting here Googling when we are very clearly nearing the end of this podcast, as your audible yawns have kind of punctuated. Oh yeah, very interesting Japanese games, Richie. You fucking weirdo. I'm so interested. What is this one? X-2 Birth? Okay. Yeah.
Crazy Japanese games that neither of us have played. Fantastic.
Yeah, this is really, really engaging for everyone, man. But yeah. Okay, cool. Is there anything else you wanted to say about fighting games, Billy Big Balls?
What's your favourite all-time fighting game?
Soul Calibur.
Soul Calibur?
Soul Calibur 3, actually. Soul Calibur 3.
Cool. A game we didn't mention once. Perfect.
Well, no, we touched. We didn't talk about this. We didn't touch the Soul Calibur.
Perfect. End of podcast.
Motherfuck. We never talked about Soul Calibur.
End of podcast. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Ultra Combo!